Welcome everybody to the latest episode of the Technical Steering Committee for the Baseline Protocol. It's good to see everybody here. We've got a quorum of the 11-person Technical Steering Committee. This is the body that resolves any issues that the maintainers of the code base and the specification are having in terms of adding members or adding maintainers, reviewing maintainers' work, or any disputes about the direction of the code base. And we also act as a way to very lightly review. If we meet every 2 weeks, you can call that a 2-week sprint-ish, and we review things that have popped out of the toaster when those occur. The SSC is the other meeting, which happens on Mondays. So the next one is next Monday at 11 o'clock. And that is the team that looks at the stuff that we're putting into the toaster and highlights the shiny ones that we want people to know about. That's the game. That's how we play it. And it's good to see everybody here. We've got Stefan, Andrew, Brian, Connor, Eric, Jack, Kartik, Kyle, Martin, Sam, and Thomas Walton Pocock. It's good to see you all. And we now, after many of these, we have a really good framework for doing these meetings. I'm going to pop the screen and we'll go right into the agenda. All right, so the agenda is pretty simple. We are going to welcome any new attendees. I don't think we have any here. Does anybody like to announce themselves? Give it a couple seconds for that. Right on, pretty stable group at this point. Any additions or modifications to the agenda? Does anybody need some time that didn't get a comment in? No, we didn't get any comments for this one. As everyone knows.
So sorry, John. There was a couple of things I thought might be worth touching on. I know and apologies for not adding them to the comments. So with documentation, it was going to be just an open query around whether you wanted to continue using Gitbooks or look at an alternative. And the other was just a sort of discussion about the kind of pulling out of the contracts from Radish 32. So I mean, there is a task associated with that, but I wanted to just understand more about people's perspective on if anyone was looking at that, or of course it will happen at some point, but just know where we are with it.
I understood the discussion of the documentation method and system. Could you help me articulate the second one a little bit better?
Yeah, it might be easier to talk about it from where we're looking at it is with Web3j. We'd like to have a nice version of it working with the baseline project. Now the smart contracts and so on work fine with it, but obviously once the kind of the core baseline components are pulled out of the Radish demo, and we have kind of one repo which is Radish and then one or multiple repos to make up the baseline components, then it just starts to be a bit clearer where the delineation of the baseline protocol related code is versus the the demo specific code. And it was really just to maybe discuss if there were plans at this point to do that. There is a ticket for it, but I don't think anyone's picked it up as such. There's just been a little bit of discussion.
Excuse me. Not COVID. So yes, Conrad, thank you. I've added those two items, and we can get them in during the retro.
I'll stick the issue in the chat as well, just so we've got it.
Thank you, Connor. So I'll make sure we give you time on that. Anything else? Anybody else? And okay, right. So we will review the previous minutes, and so here we've got the minutes from last week. We will ratify them today. The highlights here, where we've got boxes. We're going to work. I've talked to Eric about security project epics for the next, and we the security team is is getting some good stuff together, but have asked to table for the next TSC meeting. And I think that's perfectly appropriate. So unless Eric, you have anything to say about that, we can move from there.
No, that's correct. We're just going to push that to the next meeting while we get that group together.
Right. And I imagine your new role at there's a lot of great security people over there. So maybe we'll get some help.
That is correct.
Do you want to say where you are now?
Not quite yet.
Okay, good.
We'll address it soon.
Right. I was discreet, but I think it's pretty exciting. Excuse me. So we're going to be accountable for organization specification work. Well, obviously we achieved yesterday, about an hour ago, this objective to get Chet Ensign. Brian, I thought your questions and the way you took care of that meeting was awesome. And thank you for
thank you for setting it up.
Yeah. Felt like a pretty good call. We will post that meeting to YouTube to hopefully today. We'll do that. And invoice tokenization project we discussed that. The project is moving forward. There's lots of different activity. What I would say about it is that it hasn't congealed. Karthik, we could discuss that later on, or do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, we can definitely go into the details, but we've had some progress made in terms of at least gathering more folks around, like specifically Martin from Unibright, and Martin from Centrifuge, and a few others, just to generally discuss around what would be the basic requirements for a tokenized workflow, or taking a baseline workflow and extending that to add principles of tokenization and extensions of tokenization. With Kyle's help, we were able to have a breakout session during ETH Atlanta, where we went into some details of what could be possible for extension of baseline protocol for enabling tokenization as well. So we are in the process of formulating some basic requirements, or some key requirements at least needed from a repository maintenance level to be able to add capabilities. And the idea is that over the next 2 weeks, we'll have a follow-up session to firm up, say, a base use case, and ideate further and probably build further on that.
I wonder if I don't want to go into a rat hole on this. We've got lots to cover today, but maybe later we can go into it further, or we can table it. But I wonder, Karthik, if we shouldn't really encourage a red-blue or multiple red-blue and other color team kind of a thing. The simple process, right, is you've got a bunch of invoices and you're going to tokenize them, and you're going to do some financial workflow on them, like factoring, right? There's a lot of products out there that do invoice management, among other things, right? OpsChain is one of them. And there's a lot of products out there that do the financial workflows. Codify, my company, full disclosure, and also Centrifuge, which I saw was showing up in the news yesterday. I think there was a number of podcasters that have been focused on Centrifuge. So that's just two among many. So I wonder if we couldn't specify a couple of win conditions and say, have that first team to get it done gets the press release, the official Oasis press release. Something to consider. And I will just leave that hanging and move on to the next point, unless anybody wants to chime in. Okay, tools. Unibright developed the Etherscan-like tool for local environment, and Stefan's putting that project in the epics. And I think I saw that you confirmed that, so we can look at it during roadmap review. Correct? Discussion of where different types of projects should go. We've taken some further steps on the. We have just had discussions on this next step of the website, and we are committed to making sure that there is a way for the website to reflect multiple project releases without having a mess. So, you know, basically we're just adding some pages and some indexing or some you know, visual cues for, you know, having a bunch of projects listed. So a list and a set of pages. And then York is continuing to work on the Teams project and elaborate on the Icebox that was discussed. Kyle elaborated on the DocuSign and as service epics. Kyle, were you able to pull that off? I know you're working pretty hard right now on something else.
I mean, excuse me. I haven't updated the epics or anything. No, but I certainly. I mean, I thought we actually talked about that last time.
Yeah, I think we can give you a pass on that. You know, but I know that those are on, and I think, you know, others might be interested in helping you on those. So it'd be good to get those. Discussion of logs, metrics, debugging with Splunk ensued. Do we have our Splunk buddies on the call here? Just looking. They do come almost every time, but this is just before July 4th weekend. So no worries there. Brian presented findings from experiments and providing support on the website, including chat-based interface. And we shut down that experiment. Brian, you might want to bring up findings later, or you can do it now if you'd like.
Just briefly, yeah, I have a spreadsheet. So yeah, we ran it for just over a month, and it was to understand how people were using the website and what questions they had when landing on the website to potentially make changes to the website and how we structure information. And also I was kind of like a concierge for answering questions, and I kind of ran a help desk kind of bespoke myself for that time through the product called Intercom, which you can look up if you are curious, or ping me if you want me to talk about it more. But I have it all in the spreadsheet where I went through and pulled out all the first questions that people asked, and then what my suggestion is. I aggregated it all up into buckets so we could see what people are looking at. So I just want to know how I could share that, and I guess that's it. That's all I got to say. Yeah, how to share it and what people would want to see.
Eric, you're the security expert here. You want to say anything about appropriate use? I mean, these guys were. I don't think we probably had any disclaimer about, you know, making their questions and stuff public. So perhaps not putting it on the GitHub, or what say you to that?
Yeah, that's a good point. So there's no identifying information. Oh, actually, you know, there is, and I'll remove that before sharing it. But it's only a couple people who like posted a whole bunch of their like business card and name and email and stuff. But it's all been kind of DID'd to just a person asked this question. I think it's this kind of question based on category, like a community question, like, oh, how do I find out who are the members? Or does this protocol support this kind of thing? Or is this blockchain supported? Or, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I put in, you know, what geographic region they came from, like, I don't know, cities or countries, depending on what I could get from there.
Yeah, so we can probably sidebar on that a little bit. I don't want to take a lot of TSC time on it, but we might want to sidebar for 20 minutes or so on just making sure that, just checking that a little bit to make sure we don't have any issues with posting.
Right on. I'll stipulate for the record that this community is very committed to privacy and confidentiality and protecting members and individuals that engage. So we will make sure that whatever we do on that, we will do it in an abundance of caution. So probably not putting it on GitHub, but perhaps we can just share a Google Doc among the maintainers and those who are under ICLA.
Yeah, because de-identification is a little tricky. Oh, sorry, Brian. DID is a little tricky sometimes, so I just want to go through that if the request is, you know, actually look at that and make sure.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I worked in healthcare for a while, so I understand
Gotcha.
PII and all that the details. So I could also, so I guess it's the balance of like, I can just publish what I think, like my summary, and that can be made public, and I could just hold on to or delete, I guess, however, you know, I could delete the spreadsheet. But it's just, I didn't want it to seem like I was withholding information from the community to help make the website better, because it is, there are actionable metrics. So it's the balance.
Well,
I think,
Sidebar is probably the best approach.
Yeah, let's just grab 20, 30 minutes later and just check that a little bit, and I'm sure we can release some subset of that.
Okay.
I want to say that it was a great initiative and great thinking and great leadership on your part, Brian, having done it for the community, stepping up. Nobody asked you. You just got in there and did something that I thought was highly valuable. And so now let's just reap the rewards of that. And then perhaps, you know, Eric, if you can work with Brian on this together, it's always good to have a buddy system for this sort of thing. And maybe on the next TSC, we can carve out some time on the agenda to discuss where we want to go from here. Do we want to continue these kinds of things? Do we want to improve upon it? Do we want to just discontinue it? Was it a good experiment? And maybe you guys can come with some recommendations on that matter.
Sure, yeah, sounds great.
Very good. And finally, we had a discussion of docs, baselineprotocol.org leadership lists. I wrote this and I don't even know what I just said there. With mention of current practice of ensuing contributors, maintainers, SSC members, approved listing, and whether to list their company, approvals currently collected as emails, seeking more. Was I drinking too much when I wrote that? I don't even know what that means. Docs, the leadership list. Yeah. So this is this ongoing question, and we are working with Jory Burson to potentially set up a way for groups.io or one of our other tools to allow people to maintain their own profile in the Baseline community and decide for themselves where and how they are listed. So if you become a maintainer or a SSC member, do you want to put your name on the website without, you know, involving sending me an email saying, yes, you can do that. And then I have it, only evidence of that is in my email inbox. That sort of thing. So we're trying to improve that. And again, it's really I think a lot of other organizations play a little faster and looser with this and just don't worry about it. But for one reason or another, we're very serious about this kind of thing. And so we're, you know, again, in an abundance of caution, we're trying to make sure that nobody ever gets put up on a public piece of information without their permission explicitly.
I would say, just to double down on that, how important this is. It was strange to me, but that a lot of people actually really care about who is in the leadership list. Like a lot of the questions I got going to the previous topic from the website was like, is this company involved? How are they involved? Just a lot of those kind of, how do I find out updates on who is being added? Really interesting. I did not expect that. So this is a surprisingly interesting angle to an open source community like the leadership, and
yeah,
try to dial in what we feel is appropriate for maintaining that list and updating folks and that kind of thing.
I don't think anybody could have anticipated this quickly it being a monetarily important question about whether one is involved with baselining or not. And that's not just on the tokeny side of things. This is also on the big company side of things. People are saying, are you baseline? I'm hearing it. We're doing pretty well, everybody.
Our community leader page is like, that what shows who's in the community, is one of our most popular pages in the documentation, which I was not expecting at all. So yeah, it's really surprising.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that, you know, you know, companies that want, you know, that are almost, you know, preemptively saying they're involved, you know, tweeting out they're involved with Baseline to do something with their valuation. There's also on the flip side of that, large companies with whom several of us are working very intensely to make sure that their leadership makes it safe for all of their employees to be known as being involved with Baseline. I never anticipated this was going to be something that we needed to focus on this early, and it's emblematic of the relevance of this of the baseline story. Okay, those are the minutes. We usually ratify this by dissent. So if anybody is dissenting on the minutes, anything inappropriate there, give it the 7-second run. And the minutes are approved by loose consensus. All right. We're going to go now into the roadmap. Reviewing maintainer status. So maintainers, and there's a lot of them on the call today. Do you have anything to report? New maintainer considerations, anything on the maintainer side that, the big pull requests. I know the init core is coming. I know you guys are all working on that hard. But are there any things that you need the TSC to weigh in on? Any disputes or concerns? This is the only truly official thing that the TSC does. Man, this is like every TSC. This is the most boring part of the conversation because the maintainers seem to be doing very well. There's no disputes. You guys need to be more like a reality TV show and have a little more drama, I think.
We'll work on that. I was not saying it because I was hoping someone else would say something.
Is an 800 file pull request isn't enough drama for you, John?
Well, there is drama there.
Yeah. Wait till we get to the comments on Kyle's report. I have some words saving up for that.
I look forward to it.
Well, I will let us instruct the maintainers that it might be a good thing to plug into your process, every 2 weeks to maybe just have a look in each other's eyes about anything that you do want to add to the TSC. Maybe be a little deliberate about that going forward as we mature, so that and then elect somebody to throw some stuff into the upcoming TSC agenda. But obviously I've been listening in, and it seems like everything's going pretty well. It seems like a good team. Although, and this is my PSA. Once again, I've said it many times. Everybody is allowed to roll their eyes. The elections for the TSC are coming. If in July, I'm going to get pretty serious about checking with each TSC member who intends to continue with this, who doesn't. It's perfectly fine to drop out if you want to. Maintainers, it's on you guys. I'm begging you to do whatever you can. I mean, like nag people, spot people, go through the GitHub, looking for people that might have forked that you didn't catch before, letting them know that all they need to do is put a spell check into get that merge to master so that they can vote. And if they don't have that, they can't vote. So, and try to impress upon people that it is a lot easier than maybe they think and a lot safer. I think a lot of people worry about, doing a pull request like they're exposing themselves or that they're bothering people. So for the record, if anybody's watching this video, please become a contributor so that you can be a voter. Okay, Verily? Okay, moving on. Any comments on that, maintainers? More specifically, are any thoughts on your part about how we can up the ante there? Are there any creative ideas about how we can get more? I mean, there's tons of activity around the baseline work. I see it every day, but that's different from if you just use the code or if you clone it, that's not the same as being a contributor.
I do think. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Connor.
Hey. Okay, thank you. I do think that pulling out the item that we'll be discussing about pulling out the contracts later on in the agenda does come into that, because in my view, it would make it more accessible as well to a wider pool, because right now you've kind of got to go quite deep into the Radish example to get your head around it. Whereas if you can kind of pull it out to its constituent parts a bit more, then it gets a bit easier to start hacking on it and understanding what's happening. Because there's a lot of smart stuff happening under the hood.
Awesome. Yes. It may also, excuse me, not COVID. We have discussed on previous calls that it's getting to be high time for us to do some really like day long, maybe even, maybe in the extreme case, week long design sprints or development sprints, and that we do something where in our new virtual world, we have some kind of clinics on specific topics. Maybe Kyle with the init core push, there ought to be like a clinic, or maybe it's on something coming up from there. I think there's a lot of amazing work coming out, but if I'm correct, there's a lot of, as normal, Pareto rule does apply. There's a small number of people that are doing an enormous amount of work, we should probably make it easier for people to get from 20% to 30% maybe. So maybe we can do that, right? Some kind of a clinic. And
John, this is Sam. One thing I want to mention, I think you and I had talked about, and maybe others can chime in, see if they think this is a good idea. But I think we have like around 80 forks or so of the repo, but a lot less PRs on the repo than that. So you and I had talked about maybe reaching out to all the people, because we can see who's made forks, but not necessarily see what they're working on. So we discussed maybe reaching out to all those people and just seeing if there's any way we could help them open a PR, if there's anything they're getting hung up on, just kind of do some research there, and might be a way to add some more contributors to the repo.
I think it's a great idea. Would anybody like to raise their hand on it?
I would propose we wait until after the init core PR.
That makes sense.
But yes.
Yeah, I agree with Kyle. I think a lot of the work in that branch is going to make it easier for people to make incremental contributions. But yeah, maybe we can revisit this idea after that.
I'll make sure to note this in the minutes, and that we'll table the action, but the action will happen. And I think it's also good if we do it after the init core push. It makes it that activity. It's sort of an advertisement to make sure that we spread the knowledge that there's a new game in town to as many people as possible. So that's good. We can kill two birds with one stone. A terrible phrase as I think about it. I mean, who wants to kill birds? So review of roadmap. Okay, so I think that's all there is on that. I do want to bring up sponsorships later. There's some news on that, some good news. And okay, moving forward, review of the roadmap. And I don't know about anybody else, but I was having trouble this morning getting the actual roadmap. Now it's up, so we're good. So we're going to go through the new epics or actually no, this is not the SSC, this is TSC. So we will not go through new epics. We will go through anything that's now closed. So I'm going to, in this case, I think that the main thing that's closing is the init core. Are there any other successfully completed work that we want to review today? Okay, Kyle, it's your show on this. Would you like to, let me just instruct. I think that what we want to hear from you on this today with init core, I think you're the spokesman for it, are things that others need to know about the conclusion of the work that might change the nature of their work. So could you highlight that perhaps?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's. I want to put it as gently as I can. It's going to change their work. I mean, it's going to be a pretty dramatic change for the better, but it's going to require I mean, I think, let's put it this way. I think it may result in their ability to remove some code that they've written that's doing the things that's not standard, right?
Hey, Kyle, forgive me, but what issue number is it again? What's the top epic?
Honestly, I'm not sure off the top of my head. I don't have it pulled up, but it's I think the pull request is like one. Yeah, I can't remember. To be honest.
John, there should be an issue called abstraction and generalization.
Thank you. I knew it was there. Okay, good. Right, yeah, 160, 161 through 168. Yep.
Yeah. So I'd say all these things, like for example, if you have if you've implemented a messaging service in some way, you may be able to remove the way you did it, and which will make your code base a little bit cleaner, and adopt the way, the standard way that we've been working, that we've created in the core packaging. And so I think the same goes for all the different services. There's also some significant improvements and clarity around the zero knowledge service. So like Socrates as a front end for creating, for deploying circuits to the work group. That's going to be a lot clearer in terms of just how this works. There's an example, or it's called baseline app under the examples directory. It's going to have a Bob and Alice baseline, like it's baselining with Bob and Alice sort of end-to-end test suite. That's what I'm sort of working through right now, so that people can, when they clone it, they can just like sort of run that Bob and Alice example and see the generalized circuit that's in there with each of the different packages exercising, essentially that just ping pong of messages, if you will, and exercising that circuit. So I think it's going to be very easy for folks to understand, I think, but there will be some work to do on for people who have been going down sort of their own path. If they want to adopt our packaging, I think that will save them a lot of time, and then it'll probably clean up their code base so they can just have the core application logic related to whatever their process is and their system of record. So hopefully that answered your question, John.
That's a good start, obviously. And you did a whole session that's on YouTube on Wednesday yesterday, right? About an hour of discussion with other committers as well, right? Like Tomasz. And you described that we've got an RPC, right?
Yes, yeah.
At least within Nethermind, right? So
it's just implemented by Nethermind. It's the RPC interface is in the API package. You can go and see the API package has all of it has a lot of the core sort of interfaces that you're going to want to look at. There's a Vault interface for doing advanced key management, and so like Pegasus could be interested in looking at that. There's an iRegistry interface that essentially implements, like it's essentially like a way for you to become a part of the org registry and manage invites to other organizations. There's quite a bit coming, and I'd love to have the opportunity to share the Alice and Bob example next Wednesday, or whenever next week there's an opportunity for that.
So Kyle, how do people follow along with this work? And I think we discussed that the July is the time frame that we're running at. Good development. We're not going to say date X, right? We're going to say it's done when it's done, right? That's how we're going to do it. But we're tipping that this is a July time frame, perhaps early to mid July, right?
Yeah, I think so. Just in terms of having that baseline app from sort of a minimum, or like a minimalistic standpoint, being able to see this create agreement circuit working, and having a lot of the core components very much abstracted in a way that's intelligible. Where you can actually see how to import the different components using npm. There's I think 3 that have been published so far.
Okay. Well, let me propose a couple of things. One, while a date isn't necessary, a date for a date at this point is a good practice. And what I mean by that is, let us set a date where we will have a date for release where people can plan.
And I would love to have the opportunity to share next Wednesday on office hours just how much progress has been made, and I think that you'll be able to see it. I'd rather show it than guess on the date.
You're saying that that the maintainers will be able to commit to a release date on Wednesday of next week.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I'm happy to show where the Alice and Bob baseline app example is next Wednesday live. And I think that will continue. I just think that showing transparency, around how much progress is being made will allow people to sort of back into the date without having to make the maintainers on the spot.
As a practical matter, we're going to need to be able to, in order to do press releases and everything else, we're going to need to decide a date at some point. And so the question.
Sure, but my point is that maybe it will be ready by then. Maybe we're able to merge the pull request sometime next week, right? That's possible. Just throwing it out there.
Well, that's it. Yeah. So Kyle, we can take it offline, but and for everybody else on the team, especially the maintainers who are involved with this, my recommendation to you guys is that you decide the date where you think we will know enough to be able to be confident of a release on a specific date. And that can be any date you'd like, but you should decide what that is. Right. That otherwise it can kind of it'll always sort of be in Netherland, right? And the date will keep on pushing itself out. Just that's the way it usually happens. So, I think, that's what I'm asking for is, is it next week, the week after that you can say, yep, 2 weeks from then, whatever that is, we will be able to release.
Yeah, I mean, I'm making the commitment that I'm willing to commit to, and
yep.
I think we can have that discussion again Wednesday. I mean, it's going great. I mean, I'm pretty Karthik, Sam. You guys have seen the code. I mean, it's coming together. I mean, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I would say maybe let's take a call. The next TSC is 2 weeks from now, right? So we can make the call the next TSC as to when we want to release this. Would that be a fair thing? Because we do expect that a lot of it would be done next week, but there are a few unknown skeletons still around integrating all the pieces together. And as Kyle was mentioning, we just got around one bug, or not bug, I would say, like one sort of packaging issue with Socrates while we were trying to make it a generic interface. So those are, I mean, it's not a technical issue. It's just a directional issue in terms of how we want to package things. So things like that may cause like a delay of like a few days here and there. And in fact, this particular issue has actually put us in wine for the past 2 weeks. So things like those are something that we cannot foresee. Things which we cannot foresee are things we cannot put a pin on. But if it makes sense, 2 weeks from now, between Kyle and I at least, we can gather up with other maintainers over the maintainers calls we have over the next before the next TSC meeting, and pick a date. Is that fair enough?
That's fair for me.
I think that sounds good. Also, maybe we could list out exactly what will be included in that PR. So, for example, the new POC, the Bob and Alice POC Kyle's working on, and general agreement circuit, maybe just like list out all the new improvements that are coming at that point.
I can take a pass at the PR, just the PR itself, and make sure that it's up to date in that regard. But I mean, it's yeah. I'll take a pass on that, Sam, and I'll see if I can update it a bit more. But there's a, a list of packages, and Bob and Alice POC needs all of those packages. But it's they're wired. Like I said, three out of the packages are already in NPM.
And Kyle, how confident should people be that the in progress issues here is that a complete set, or are you still working on making sure that the issues match the work?
So again, that's I would say I have not done a good job making sure the issues match the work. I would say thank you to Sam for helping me there, like dramatically helping me there. So maybe Sam and I could get together and make sure that everything matches. But I think it probably does match. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's more to it than that. So maybe I take it.
Who's interested in helping or looking at the work as it's going, they're going to look at these issues and the PR, right? And the branch.
Yeah, it'd be cool to look to try to get get these issues outlined within the PR as well. So maybe I can take a stab at that.
That'd be great. Okay, so I think if I heard correctly, and it sounded like general consensus, we will run at 2 weeks from now, we will be able to confidently say when we are releasing, which means we will not release before the next TSC. That means we will be releasing in the latter half of July at the very best case. And that's perfect. Just in case anybody, for avoidance of doubt, I, for one, don't think that's bad at all. That's perfectly fine from where I sit. Does anybody have any other thoughts on that? This is a big one. We got to get it right. And as long as we don't make it go forever, there's a balance to this, right? You go too long and nobody cares anymore. Go too short, go too fast, and make mistakes, and nobody's going to care after they try it. So got to still between a rock and the hard place there.
Yeah, I think it feels right.
Okay, so 2 weeks from now we will set a date, or you will tell us that we can't, which is also acceptable. But we'll run at it. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, there's always something you're going to, I mean, that's development, right? And you discover something along the way, it's going to put a rock in the road, and you got to deal with it. Okay. Does anyone else have a delivery that they want to discuss? That's the big one.
I can just mention, because it fits in here quite well, that our development blockchain explorer will end up, at least that is the current idea, it will end up under the lib section in that init core branch. So the solution itself is already open source, but currently in the Unibright GitHub. Exactly, I put the link in there. So the idea is to make like a copy of the current state and contribute it just to baseline. And after discussing it with Kyle, we thought that the lib section in the init core branch would be a nice place to put it, with like a tools subfolder. And then we have a blockchain explorer subfolder, and there we have that small application going. And if you're interested, I could offer to give a short walkthrough how it's used in the context of Ganache in, for example, the next office hours. In the next TSC, I will not be available, so I could do it like next office hours if you're interested.
Fantastic. Yeah, I pulled this up so that viewers can see it and be aware of it, which is a big part of the TSC. People do watch these things. All right, that's great. Anything else on that?
I just had a small technical issue that I was able to put it in the baseline road. roadmap, and I was able to open that issue, but I was not able to move it to the currently in progress lane on the board. I don't know why, if I'm missing.
Which issue is it?
Permissions, 177. So if you take a look at the, oh, no, it is.
It's on the board, but I bet, is this inside the /baseline or /baseline roadmap? I'll take care of it after this.
Okay, so, but also tell me what I did wrong so I can do it better next time.
Is this,
I clicked around a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think probably, okay, so just for education of everybody, is this the top level epic? This is what you want on the roadmap? Or do you want
it's an epic under the section tools. So I just found the high level value deck and the ROI calculator there, and I thought it would be the right level.
There it is. Yeah, you're on it.
Okay.
Yeah, Blockchain Explorer right there. You're good.
Because you have done something now, or it just was there?
It was
then magically I did the right things, but wasn't able to check. Okay, forget it. Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's good. Right on. Okay, before we go into our last 10 minutes, are there any questions? Or are there any additions that we want to discuss? Okay. Discussion of the documentation method and system. Connor, you brought that up. Would you like me to report on that, or do you have other questions in there? Would you like to lead it off?
Yeah, I mean, it was really just checking in, because I know that you've been using Gitbooks, but I wanted to just understand if in the end people were happy with that, or whether there was still an intent to look at an alternative that's provides the ability to edit via repos, these sorts of things, instead of it all being driven by the web interface.
Right. So let me report on where we're at. Brian, again, thank you very much for spearheading this. And we seem to have kind of, I wouldn't say come in a circle, but like in a spiral. We've kind of come back around to a theme, but a little bit better. And I finally got the Gitbook team to respond to our support queries by calling them out on Twitter. So amazing, they started responding to my support queries after I mentioned them on Twitter. Not unusual, I guess. And but yeah, I don't want to publicly shame them. I guess that's pretty normal. And that now they're providing pretty good support. And what they're saying is that a good pattern is, and this is not concluded yet, but what we have done is we've reintegrated Gitbook to the master branch of baseline in GitHub. And the practice shall be that in special cases like Kyle right now, right? There's a lot of work that needs to be done. It'd be nice to do it inside of a nice IDE. So we've given him access on a temporary basis to the Gitbook interface so that we can get through those documentation changes quickly, because it is quite nice. But most people can now expect that if they make changes to the docs and get it into master, it will merge into on the next merge. It will go onto the website. And the practice shall be use just edit .md files on the repo, and we will in most cases try to avoid using Gitbooks for that. So Gitbooks will just be basically pushing to the web unless there's an emergency and we need to do something really fast, and I just happen to be able to do it. So it's nice to kind of have something.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like what you really wanted before. I mean, is that something that's kind of normally available with Gitbooks? Because from what I read into it initially, historically Gitbooks used to be all about that sort of project, that workflow, then they created their platform offering where they pushed everyone into the web editor to do everything. And it looked like the integration with a general source project repository didn't seem to be there anymore. So yeah, I'm intrigued.
We got confirmation today, actually this morning, that they are working on re-enabling or enabling the feature of approvals. Right now, anybody that has access to the IDE can hit merge, and it's on the web. There's no controls. And what I just added another question to them is, are they going to do that in line with the integrated GitHub repo policy, so that the same maintainers, for example, we have a 3 maintainer rule, right? To merge to master, would that be consistent, or would we have to like specially set that up? And I don't have an answer on that. But right now, the confirmation is they don't have a way to do it. They are working on it. And so the workaround for us, because we do like the way it presents things, and it is nice. And Brian, I think, ultimately finally made the call that we're going to stick with it, and that we're going to keep it in the /baseline repo and not in a new docs repo. Brian, would you like to?
Sounds like good result.
No, I think you got it there. No, nothing to add.
Okay, check my math. Okay, Connor, is that sufficient?
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. Because it sounded a little while ago like we weren't going to be able to go down that route. So it's good that we are now.
If anyone on the call or who's watching the video has a good idea here, we like innovation in this community. So we can reopen this issue. Right now, we will close the issue and consider it resolved for now. But you could reopen it at any time and say, I found a new tool. It's way better. Let's check that out. Initiative is welcome. Okay. Maybe somebody watching this video will be a company that has a new cool tool for documentation. They'll call up and say, you should use us. So we'll say, okay. All right. Web3J and working with baseline protocol discussion of key smart contracts. Would you like, we got about 4 minutes left. Would you like to?
Yeah, I can keep it quick. I think that the init core work is really going to cover off a lot of this, and it's going to make sense for me to start doing some digging around that a bit more. Fundamentally, it's seeing where there's opportunities to integrate the JVM with the core baseline contracts. The work that Carl's doing clearly is moving anyway in the right direction with the big refactor. I don't think there's really anything further to say on it, given that we've already had a fair bit of time on this call where we're running through the planned timelines. But I think now's the time for me to start digging around a bit more in his work.
Connor, let's just say for the record, if you guys have cycles, I know nobody ever has cycles, but if you have cycles to work with Kyle and the rest of the maintainer team on this, help just check the math, look at it, maybe have a couple of meetings with them, or just to sync up. The more eyes on this, isn't that the open source rule, right? All bugs are trivial with enough eyeballs. So this would be the time in the next 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, we'll sort something out. We're chatting privately now.
All right. White Block isn't on the call right now, but they I don't know. I think somewhere upwards of 30 companies have requested to be invited to the SSC in the last 2 weeks. So it's crazy. And White Block is now added. So maybe I'll reach out to them and I'll put this in, I'm saying it now so that I can, when I'm reviewing the video, I can get it on the minutes. I'll go back to White Block and see if they can spend some time looking at the security issues, doing some diligence on it, and maybe I'll talk to our Dilly team at Consensus as well. And that is the buzzer. Thanks everybody. Last word here. Sponsorships. A company who I don't have the liberty to say because they didn't give me permission to say it on camera, yet, I guess. But I just, I just don't want, again, abundance of caution. I'm not going to say who it is, but a company has just sponsored the Ethereum-Oasis project at Oasis. And that means that they will be offered a PGB seat, and they will be listed on Oasis as a sponsor of this and the baseline protocol. And we will, I think Carol Geyer said that we will in August, we don't have the exact date, we will make a press release and an announcement of new sponsors and, you know, and how things are working with that. So, you know, here's my fund drive, you know, call Carol Geyer or myself or someone and say, hey, it's not a lot of money. And I know it's COVID time, but it's not a lot of money, and it would be great for those who can sponsor to do so. And you know, just to put a little nudge in here, I don't know, you know, some companies may not love not being on the list when the press release goes out, given who else might be on that list. So that's my, I will say in full disclosure, that's my evil way of prompting more sponsorships, but at least I'm honest about my evil ways. So with that, we'll thank everybody for the time, and this will be put on YouTube forthwith, at least in the next 24 hours. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
See you guys.
Thanks.
Guys.
Thank you. Bye.